What's up, guys? Welcome back to the WRPF podcast. I'm your host, Alex Uslar. Episode 59. We got my girl, Liz Strain, all right, owner of Fortress Athletics. She is a self-proclaimed rare bird. All right. It's what she told me yesterday when we were talking about doing the podcast. I'm very excited to have her on. We're continuing the meet director series. As you guys know, been interviewing a lot of different meet directors. Liz brings a very different end to the table between her charity work that she does, her women's only meets. She's not a gym owner, but she's collaborating with other gyms. And just overall, that's your welcome. And thank you for
Yeah,
hopping on and sitting and chat with me.
I appreciate you having me.
So the way that we like to flow with it is I want to find out what got you to powerlifting, right? You're still competing as a masters athlete now, right? Been
Yeah,
competing for quite a few years now, but it wasn't until
yes,
your 30s that you found or you started competing in powerlifting, right?
yes, yeah.
So take me.
Um, okay. So it, I didn't get into powerlifting until 35. I had four kids. I had twins. They were about 2 years old, and when they were two, I competed in a bodybuilding show. One, one bodybuilding show was enough for me. I did a figure competition and they said, hey, you need to bring up your glutes and your hamstrings. Well, we know what builds that. So I went back to the gym. I was working at Gold's Gym as a trainer at the time. And there were, powerlifters, strongmen competitors there, and they were so excited. They were like, hell yeah, come squat with us. And so I started training powerlifting style to get ready for another figure show. And and I was a terrible squatter. But they're like, wow, you're really strong. And I was like, I am. Words of affirmation is my love language. so I so I was like, you know what? While I'm building, I need to like have a goal. So I'll compete in a powerlifting competition. And so I turned 35. I was in Virginia at the time. And so I competed in my first powerlifting meet ever at 35 as a submaster and ended up like breaking a state record, which at the time was not really that high. So I just, thought I
But it
was
was that
super
low
cool.
hanging fruit, right? Especially
It
if
was
you're
very low,
doing it. That's what
but
people are reaching for.
I had the advantage of coming into the powerlifting world before it was like a big thing on Instagram. I learned from all the YouTube channels and the old school guys. But so so I look back at that meet and it was not pretty. And I actually like this was before, girls who powerlift and Fleo had all their cute singlets. So I had to wear one of those like atrocious wrestling singlets. And I found out like a few years later, someone was watching my video and he was like, you're wearing your wrestling singlet backwards. So that was me. Like, you want to talk about a Cinderella story? That's why I tell all of my athletes, like, hey, if I can get to where I've gotten to, anybody can. And that, that's kind of how the space that I moved from as a coach. But I always I didn't start the sport out really comparing myself to people, or there wasn't all this stuff out there. And so I just always had fun. And I think that like allowed me to push pretty far pretty early because, sometimes ignorance is bliss. But I did spend a few years like, yeah, I look back and I'm like, but I kept competing after that. It was like that bodybuilding, what? This is who I am. I loved the community vibe. Bodybuilding was a very isolating sport. And so it just really fit me. It fit my personality. I started training my clients at the gym like in powerlifting, and it was so good for them. It was women's bodies were changing. They were showing up for their sessions because it's a measurable thing, right? You can measure powerlifting. And so instead of just going into the gym and working out, we're actually like, we're going to hit this number. And I saw how empowering that was for women. And it changed the game for me, as a trainer and, just as a woman, as an athlete. So yeah, I started out in the USAPL. Um, and I was kind of working my way up in the USAPL, and then I was actually a meet director in the USAPL. That was my first meet I ever directed, which is
Let's
crazy.
pause on the meet
Yeah.
directing portion yet. It's funny,
Okay.
during that period, it was very similar for me where powerlifting was something that was so measurable. And when you're dealing with those gen population people, that's what they want to see is progress in one way or the other. The scale might always not always be fluctuating. It's hard for you to measure and look at your own body and kind of see things. So that was where I actually found a ton of success also around that period, 2015, 2016, as a personal trainer, where, people, we weren't doing CrossFit, we weren't doing HIIT, we were doing this more simple style training, but it's fun. The athletes get excited to see what's to come. And
Yes.
it just also speaks kind of to a different age of powerlifting, but also us as people who were a professional in the personal training field and how we are able to morph
Yes.
what we were doing into the clients and kind of see the success. And I think a lot of that is also what started breeding more of the awareness early on, right? Again, before the age of social media and before, that kind of uprising. So with you working at that Gold's Gym, you were someone, because I like to hear, everyone has a different story of how they found powerlifting, but you were fortunate enough that you happened to be around a lot of people who were already into powerlifting, although powerlifting was not mainstream as you can say that it kind of is now,
Not
right?
at all. Not at all. Yeah. We were just like moving into that. But my first experience with powerlifting was actually in my 20s or in my 20s, and somebody was like, "Hey, this is what powerlifting is. Come and squat." And they taught me how to squat, but they didn't know how to teach me how to squat. And it felt terrible. It felt awful. They probably put too much weight on the bar. And that turned me off to powerlifting. I was like, I don't mess with that. And I was able to revisit it years later, but that's one of those things as a coach, to make sure that it feels good to people, that they have a great first experience with it, so that they're not, avoiding the sport. But yeah, so I kind of just worked my way up. I would definitely say, I mean, I've been in the sport for 8 years, do the math. um, and I never really had any limiting beliefs on myself, and um, just kept going and going. And it was in 2019, I was getting ready for USAPL Nationals, and I had the bench injury. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but I had 242 loaded on the bar, on a slingshot. I was slingshot benching.
Yeah, I've seen the video.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And it's honestly a miracle I'm alive if you've seen the video. It disfigured me, it put me in the hospital, and everyone was like, do you want to back out? Greeno was my coach at the time. He was like, face, Liz. He's like, we're going. And I was like, okay. So I just dealt with my anxiety by getting under the bar. That's what helped me deal with it, not avoid it. Ended up, getting I got my first 100-kilo bench at USAPL Nationals. And that day when I'm in the hospital, like, stitches in my face, I said, one day I am going to bench that raw as long as it takes me to get there. And so the pro was huge for me because I believe that my singular pursuit of that one thing is what got me to the pro, if that makes it. It wasn't about a pro platform. It wasn't, I mean, I got to a pro level, so why not compete in a pro meet? I've never, huge platforms have never really been important to me, but I loved the pro when I visited. I was like, it would be really cool to do that. And that would be a really cool place to get my 242 bench. But I had I'm other than that injury, I have never had an injury in powerlifting. Just outside of aches and pains. And it's just surprising for an old lady. But so that was just a freak accident. I mean, I think it was a festering issue, and yeah, so I was like, everybody's like, do you want to get out of the meet? I mean, I could barely walk, but they put me on enough pain medicine and I had enough adrenaline. And I was like, no, hell no. I was like,
Well,
I came here for that bench. I'll do it with one leg if I have to. And I got it. So
so to kind of expand on that story, what Liz is referring to, the American Pro, the most recent American Pro, right? Just we're 6 months removed, 8 months removed, whatever it is.
something like that.
You on your second attempt squat tore your hamstring, right? Or something
Oh
along those.
yeah, I heard it. I heard it. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
other people heard it too.
I
And
was there.
David the King caught me, of course.
I remember seeing it. So you tear your hamstring, you go into this big meet. It's your first exposure to a pro platform, but you went there, like you said, with one true singular goal in mind. A lot of people, I mean, you use leg drive on bench, you still have to, you're not going to go do a Larson, especially when you're trying to go for something that's been a huge milestone for you. So you went and accomplished the 242 bench. You went, took a token deadlift, and were able to put it in the books.
Yeah, it took my dot score from like, 495 down to 300 or something. But but it was, and everybody was like, man, it's interesting how a lot of people want to look at the negative side of things and feel sorry for me that happened. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was like, I got what I came for, and I got a national open record on bench in my weight class. And it was phenomenal. You want to talk about delayed gratification.
That's awesome.
That was
So,
4 years later, I achieved that. And there's a lot more that I want to achieve. And I just started prep for Pro Surge yesterday. So hopefully I can have a bit of a comeback. But, I'm going into that meet a lot less serious about it. I mean, I take things seriously and I always work hard, but I'm just moving into it with a lot more gratitude and going to bring what I can. And the most important thing for me, and always has been, to be healthy. I want longevity in the sport. And so I'm not going to push past the point of me, hurting myself again. And I'm going to be really good with my nutrition, my sleep, and I'm trying to set boundaries that allow me to thrive on a personal level because that's where it's at for me. I
and
just want to go and have fun and have a good time.
And a lot of
Yeah.
that mindset is super important because a lot of the lifters who I interview that aren't necessarily the meet directors, gym owners, whatever, a lot of people on that high level talk about how selfish you have to be, right? To truly succeed in the sport and really channel in, and you might neglect your significant other, you might neglect your work, you might have to take steps back from work. And you, being someone who has many lines of work, many lines of, into the sport, it's a matter of finding that proper middle ground, right? Where you're still doing it for
Yeah.
yourself and for the love, but also it's not going to take away from that other end of it.
Right. And, finding that balance is really important. And that comes to clear communication and really setting boundaries, and the people that you love in your life saying, hey, I'm setting this expectation for you. And when they feel like they can participate in it and be a part of it, and they know, like I tell my athletes, like I'm sending out a schedule to them actually today of my next 3 months, so they know not to bother me when I'm at the gym. Not bother me, but like now's not a good time. These are my work hours. And doing the same thing with my kid, with my boyfriends, like making sure that they feel like they're participating in it, that I'm not having to neglect them in any part of it. And I'm just, I make it work. I travel all the time, and so many gyms take care of me and bring me in and allow me to um, use their equipment, and so we make it work.
Hell yeah. So going back, taking it way back to that first competition. So again, like you said, went from being figure, started powerlifting to build up weak points and build certain musculature. But I'm
Yes.
assuming from that first competition, you made the flip. You made the switch, right? You decided
Oh
you would
yeah.
stick solely with powerlifting. It started
Yeah.
kind of morphing, even like we talked about how you trained your clients, how you, composed yourself with that stuff. So how did that kind of start snowballing in your career? Because I mean, look, I'm in the same shoes as you also. It's like we've been
Yes.
fortunate that the industry has evolved, right? We went from being
Yes.
in-person trainers who worked with
Mhm,
clients, and whether it was powerlifting, whether it was they wanted to do circuit hit training, whatever it was,
mhm.
that was kind of our boom, boom, boom. So where was
Yeah,
kind of the evolutionary switch for you that it started becoming involved in, a judging, etc.?
yeah. That's a great question. So I was a military wife for 15 years, and so I moved a lot every 2.5 years, and I would be in different gyms. And when I moved to Kansas, back in 2016, right after I'd started powerlifting, and I'd been powerlifting for maybe a year at that time, go to a gym, another Globo gym, and I was continuing to compete. And, it's like a health club, and they just weren't really equipped for it. And I was training my athletes that way. And the the managers would push, everyone would go through them. So they would push the client to who what coach would meet their goals. And a lot of clients don't know that that that's going to help them reach their goals or compound lifts and whatnot. So I had started. There was a guy that had a coaching business, and I started with him, and we were working together. And I was, the female coach. And as I was moving to Washington on my next move, I had built this like big team of athletes, and we had our own space in this little gym. So I left my job, and then I moved into a coaching business. We went inside of the gym, and it had a small little space, and we would meet there every week. We had team Sundays. So I really started out with like that team vibe. But it was all in person. And so when I moved out to Washington, they were like, Liz, we want you to still coach us. And so I said, well, okay, like we'll figure this out. And so I figured out how to become a remote coach, and it was great. But from the beginning, I kept um, that belief that I wanted team. How could I continue to keep that team vibe, that community as a remote coach? And I mean, I would say it's 5 years later, looking at a team of, upwards of 100 athletes at a time, and they're all friends. They'll show up for each other. If I can't be, in that area, I can call up an athlete and say, hey, can you go handle so and so? And everybody takes care of each other. And it's just continued, and it just gets more and more bonds are created. And so we just have something really awesome. And it blows my mind because, when you have core values and you have a mission, and you have a strong sense of self, that really endures through everything. And that's, how I believe these businesses succeed, because you can always come back to center when things go off track or things get difficult. And that's what I believe has helped Fortress be successful. And so I'm now in South Carolina. I plan to be in this area for a while, the area anyway.
So
So
you popped
that's
around
how
from state to
it
state a
started.
lot.
Yeah.
So
I didn't want to do general fitness anymore.
fair, fair.
Yeah.
So competing all these different states, in what, along with your clients, remote coaching them, where did it start, like kind of triggering that you want to be involved as a meet director? You started it as a judge. Where were
My
you
second
judging?
meet,
Okay,
my second meet I ever did. I had no idea what a meet director was. I remember because remember, first impressions are everything,
of
right?
course.
They're everything. And I remember at the second meet just being like, where's the music? Like, why is the meet director being so rude? I had no idea where I was. I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. And I remember in that moment, this would be really fun. Like I love to throw a party, right? I love to make people feel good. And I in that moment said, I want to do that one day. But like, how was I going to do that? I was a military wife at the time, and I didn't have a gym. But so so in Kansas, I got to know JP, who's at Strong Barbell Club. And then my athletes all went there, and they took care of my athletes. And so when when I started getting involved with Special Olympians, um, I wanted to have a meet that supported them so that they didn't just have to compete in the Special Olympics. And so we created Built Strong, which is my motto for Fortress. And ever since then, we've had Built Strong. This will be year 5. And I brought the Built Strong over to South Carolina and came here like, hey, I know nobody knows me here. And I just pulled together a meeting, like an area meeting, and was like, this is who I am. This is what I do. We want to extend the sport to your athletes, and we want to support them so that they're not limited to this 3 month season in the Special Olympics. But a lot of them can't afford it. And so I kind of wanted to make Built Strong be about them and provide them a platform where they can be seen. And last year was our first meet in South Carolina. I believe we had 13 13 Special Olympians, and we're about to start gearing up for Built Strong 5. And this year it's going to be tested, untested, and Special Olympians. And we're going to get the Special Olympians their own flight, but everybody's going to be mixed together. And we want them to feel like they belong here because they do. So, and you guys have, and that's what I love about being in the WRPF is you guys have just poured yourself into my ideas. Um, if I come to you guys with something, you're like, yeah, that's great. What can we do to support you? And in the Special Olympians thing, y'all created, the discounted membership, and we've had a lot of sponsors come in and help us be able to move this forward because I cannot leave it behind. So hopefully you can build it in the Carolinas and help spread it across the nation in
Yeah,
this Fed.
I remember when you were first moving over there and you reached out, we conversed about it and you told me what it was
Yeah.
all about, and I could see how special that, that cause was for you. And it's awesome to see that you've been able to carry it even to another state because it's not easy. If you have something that's pre-existing somewhere, it kind of just, goes itself. These people are expecting it always, and now you go to this new area, and for you to reach out, it's not just putting a meetup on a calendar, it's for you to help find these people and offer it to them and make it available and just give them something cool and fun for them to look forward to, and that's something that's different.
Yeah. And it's just that's where my heart is. My heart is giving people a good experience and making them feel seen. And when I part of the reason why I got into meat directing was because, um, or I think where my gifts lie in it is that I'm designing and creating the whole thing based on the perspective of the athlete. What would the athlete want in this moment? What would make them feel good? What would make them feel safe? What would make them feel, like they don't have to think about anything but their next lift. And so I'm always like very cognizant of that on game day too. Even when I'm meet directing or officiating, I'll, make sure that I'll be thinking about them in the warm-up room and make sure they know where they're supposed to be. And um when they come out, knowing their name, knowing what the name that they're called. Those kinds of things. And I just want people to leave feeling like, man, I love this sport, and have an awesome day. So that's really how it's like for me, it's throwing a party. And now I am, some people might say that I'm ill-equipped because I don't, outside of like the what we need for a platform, I don't have a gym. I don't have all of the warm-up room equipment. And I've spent some time investing in that, but really what I've invested in is all of the um, meet director things that I need, like TVs and computers and tables and microphones and all that stuff. And but it's been a really, really cool experience. And I'm really excited about 2025 because I get to go into other gyms with other gym owners and say, hey, like we want to promote your gym. And we've got the two Fortress run meets, which is Goddesses of Steel, the all women's meet, and then we've got Built Strong. Outside of that, like I want to go into a gym and say, hey, do you want to help be a part of this process? Let's design a logo that you want. What do you want to name it? What do you, and to really collaborate and develop relationships with people and help their businesses succeed as well. And I get to go in and throw the party. And I also know where I'm limited, in certain things. I'm not technologically skilled. I'll put together a platform. I know what I'm supposed to put together, but that's the other great thing about team is we function as a body. There's somebody that's good at this. There's somebody that's good at this. And it's kind of overseeing it and bringing them all together. And you're bringing people into their own power in their own position and helping them feel good about being contributors, right? And at the novice competition, so I'm chair with Michael Skolin, and we're co-directing together, and we just work great together because we're very different. I bring something, he brings something, and but at the novice meet, that was not only an opportunity to introduce new lifters into the sport, but also new officials, which I've had to build those from the ground up. There was like not WRPF over here at all. I'm like, help, help. And I don't mind crying for help. Um, but uh first time spotters and loaders. So the whole meet, I'm running a practical officiating. I'm on the mic. I'm like helping people learn how to spot and load, and it just ran beautifully. And everybody felt empowered and successful. And at the end of the day, that's what I want because we'll make it come together. And everybody's winning.
It's
So
not like you tried saying it's a deficiency. It's not at all because there's so many areas that even though powerlifting is very widespread, it doesn't have a strong presence. But then additionally, there's so many business owners and gym owners who they know their strengths and weaknesses, and then they know that they're busy with their day-to-day operations of the gym. And if it wasn't for someone like yourself, they don't know anything on how running a meet works. They don't know, and nor do they have a desire. If it wasn't for someone like yourself, a meet wouldn't be involved in their gym, right? So it's a very important role for people who travel around because it's a cross promotion, like what you said. You can do a cross branding where it's all under their name. It helps grow their business. It still brings money into their business as well. It brings traffic, it brings awareness, and it helps powerlifting grow in their gym and it helps powerlifting grow as a whole in the state. So it's a very, very important thing. And I'll be completely honest, someone like myself, the state of Florida, we don't have a lot of WRPF because I have no desire to go anywhere else. Even if a gym
yeah,
owner in
yeah.
Tampa called me and said, "Hey, Alex, I have everything up here. I want you to come run a meet."
Like, why would you? You
I
have
why
your
would I
yeah.
be? Because I have my own gym to do it, but
Yeah.
also because I just have too much going on beyond
Yeah.
that. Because having a gym
Yeah.
of itself is very, it demands
Yes.
a lot.
Yes. Yes.
So when
Yes.
you do look at people like myself and like a lot of our meet directors who do have gyms, it's semi reclused and kind of closed off, that's
Yes.
just because of all the other demanding responsibilities that go around it. So people like
Yeah.
you are very, very important that can go more widespread and build it up as a whole.
And I love it. It's you get more help too, like because they get involved and they want to help promote, and it's just a win-win for everyone. And I always wanted my own gym. I wanted the fortress. And maybe that will happen one day. I don't know. But at this point, fortress is more of an ideology. It's more of a um it's it exists, but it exists across the country and in people and in gyms, and it might not be brick and mortar, but it exists. And I'm starting to realize like maybe this is how this is supposed to be because it creates a lot of freedom in my life because I'm not tied down to brick and mortar. And I've been a nomad my whole life. And so I'm good at this. And it might not make sense to other people, but to me, it's what I know and it's what I'm good at.
And that's what it's all about. Like a lot of people like the idea of something.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
idea of a gym can be cool. An idea of running a meet can be good, can be fun. But it's analyzing kind of the risk reward, your strengths, your weaknesses, everything that goes around it. And analyzing something like a gym, it's a freaking lot. So it's like you've done the right approach of how you've kind of built yourself up and built your brand, and also at the same time kind of traveling around where you have a lot of that freedom. I'm the same way, luckily, that I've been able to build things to scale and I have a lot of strong people who work underneath me that it's like, man, I'm living the dream. How many people can just travel to a million powerlifting competitions a year, go off on vacation and still be able to maintain your responsibilities, speaking to your clients and, still maintain your income, not having a job where you rely on a gym that you're a personal trainer that you get paid by the session you train someone. And if you're gone 2 weeks, you didn't fucking train anyone. It's like
Yeah,
I've been there, done that, and it's hard.
yeah.
So
It's been wonderful. I'm always working. But people will be like, I'll be traveling or even on vacation, and they're like, "Hey, you could you shouldn't work. You're on vacation." I'm like, well, I mean, I also have the luxury of being able to, answer a message on horseback. But I've gotten on a horseback ride, but I've gotten better about, being able to separate business from personal, and that's come with having a director of operations. And what's been great about Fortress is we've been able to take athletes who have skills, like our graphic designer, to see the goddess behind me. She designed that. And I was like, I need to put you out there. And so she's been able to start doing graphic design for other meet directors, um, social media. There's all kinds of stuff, people to handle the finances. Kim will write an email to my athletes for me, pretending she's me, and then I'll go in and I'll be like, "Wow, you're really good at this." And because I'll be in the car, like on the way somewhere in the carpool with my 4 kids, and I'm like, "Hey, we need to get an email in this point, this point, this point," and so it's great because we are functioning as a team, and I just feel like I'm another part of the team, really, just kind of steering the ship. And
delegation is huge,
yeah,
and finding the strength, and finding the right team to delegate to. I'll tell you, I'm someone that's something that I'm still trying to learn to this day. And again,
it's hard.
everyone's different. Everyone knows their strength and weaknesses. I am an insane micromanager, and as soon as I delegate, I'm over your shoulder watching
Yeah.
every move. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. So
Yeah, and you develop trust in people and you start to see them be successful and they're like, really can handle that. And it gets better over time. But at Ghost, I had such a great experience. Thank you for having me come there and referee. That was really fun. But I thought to myself, sitting behind the table, I don't know what his name was, but it was you even had your officials and your staff being taken care of by some guy that's like walking around, "Hey, how you doing? What's your name? Can I get you a drink?" And I'm like,
Andrew, yeah,
"Yeah, tell him I said thank you." But that he stood out to me because those are the details that I think about when I'm running a meet. Like we need a handler for the handler. Um, and so it's that kind of attention to detail that's really important. And I can pay attention to those kinds of details. And I see it all. I have a vision of it. And I'm like, okay, how do we bring it all together? And and so I mean, I'm kind of over people's shoulders too, because I really care about character. I care about quality. I care about if I'm going to say something's going to be done a certain way, then I'm going to make sure. But if I need to coach somebody on something or an official or a staff member, I'll do it gently and encouraging as a teaching moment. Everything is a teaching moment. And it's gotten to the point where I've built this team of people that I really, really trust. And I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep growing it because that's how we're going to make WRPF successful here.
hell
I know
yeah.
I can't do it by myself. Me and Michael, we're doing great so far. I'm loving it. I'm excited about 2025.
So give us a preview. Tell us what's on the books, what's on the card for the rest of 2024, 2025. What can we expect from you, Fortress Athletics, and the WRPF in your region?
All right. Well, 2 meets a year in April. April is goddesses. Built Strong is typically in November. So we've got Built Strong. That year five, it's November 16th at TriFit Barbell in Malden, South Carolina. Um, and that is the Special Olympian meet. But it's open to everyone. It's already half full and we're 5 months out. So y'all sign up. And then Michael is doing the Merry Lift Miss at Palmetto Pump House, the Christmas themed meet. And then in 2025, we've got it because we're running North Carolina and South Carolina. So um I met a girl that owns a gym in North Carolina because she showed up at my garage from Facebook Marketplace to buy a Yukon bar. And I was like, hey, what would you be interested in running a meet in your gym? And she's like, heck yeah. So I'm just trying to connect. We'll probably have a meet. It's Spud in August next year, Spud Inc., which is my gym that I go to. He's been so good to me. And it'll be a mono meet because that's been it's been I just have a combo rack, and so I've got to find gyms with mono meets because I want to bring that here. But yeah, we've got several, they're not official yet, but we've got several different gyms that we're working with. We'll probably have 6 meets at least next year on the calendar instead of just two,
I love it.
instead of just Fortress meets. I want there to be 2 Fortress meets and the rest of them to be about everybody else and their business. And I
I love
can't
it.
wait. Hmm.
Your area, your region has a big demand for it, so I can only
Hmm.
see, a lot of success and continued success, even from people from Florida trickling their way up there. Since again, we don't have a lot, or we don't have much here in Florida at all. So
Yeah.
I'll
We do
definitely.
have the South Carolina State Championships. We do have that. That's going to be every January. We're always going to have the novice competition in June, always the Christmas competition in December. So almost all of our months are filled up. Spud in August. And then there's a couple other gyms we're trying to work with. But so if you guys are in the Carolinas and you want a meet hosted at your gym, call me and we'll make it happen. We'll
Well,
try to make it happen.
we'll try to make it happen. Let everyone know where they can find you if they're interested, where they can find information about all your meets, and sign us out.
Okay. At Liz.Fortress is my personal Instagram page, and then at Fortress.athletics. Liz_Fortress, Fortress.athletics. Those are my 2 pages. And when you click on the link, on my link tree is this long with all of our meets and all of our events, our sponsors, and if you want to sign up for coaching with me, you can click on that too. I just had to
Awesome.
plug that in there.
Thank you so
Um,
much for hopping on, Liz. I enjoyed chatting with you, enjoyed hearing a
yes,
bit more about what you got going on. I hope
yeah.
everyone you enjoyed this week's episode. Make sure to check out all the ongoings in the South for the WRPF.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.